Hello, class. Today we're going to be talking about the Poetry Archive, which is this wonderful resource for just sort of looking up poetry, studying poetry, teaching poetry. It also has a bunch of children's poetry, which is typically pretty hard to find just because it's never really published, but it's also got a lot of support in Poetry Archive Store. It has up on its front page new to the archive, which are updated and recent poems, as well as historic readings and classical poems. And on the front page, it's just got a bunch of links to books, CDs, downloads, that sort of stuff, in case you're interested in that. As well, it's got Facebook, Twitter, and other ways to share this site and what you find in it. In the Explore Poetry tab, you're able to really focus in and search for whatever poetry you're looking for, whether it be historic readings, which explore authors like Gloria Undying and Hilary Belloc, as well as classic poems going back to Shakespeare. And in case you're looking to study poetry, it's got a bunch of different resources to look at, get a grip with poetry, as well as Now Go Further, which has a bunch of interviews, that sort of stuff, as well as different, more focused collections of poetry, whether it be Gothic, Caribbean. For teachers, it's got lesson plans and different practices that you can use in the classroom, which is a really great thing that the other poetry sites that I was looking at really didn't have. And lastly, it's got children's poetry, which brings you to another tab. It's got a lot of different pictures, different authors where you can ask the poet, and then take a tour of the site, which goes over all these different themes that children's poetry revolves around. Now, to return to the Explore Poetry, we'll look at some of the different ways to look through poetry. So in Browse Poems, it's got different filters for children's classics and historic, as well as different poets and different forms of poetry, so be it contemporary, a ballad, that sort of stuff. And then also it shows you the different voiceovers, which is great because you get to hear the authors read their poems. And then it's also got a bunch of different starting points, as well as different biographies. And this is a really great thing for studying different poets. You get to see where they came from and why they started writing. And then it also has different collections of poetry, so we've got the classic collection, writing places, children's poems, and then escape poems and even Mother's Day poems for the seasons. So they give you this nice little database for whatever reason it is. And then a little background information on the site. But this is just one of those wonderful resources that you keep going back to.